We can sort of bring up the don't say gay lie, that the hoax from the Democrats. The bill in Florida's true intent was to make sure parents are informed about what's happening with their kids. The left lied and claimed it was don't say gay. I know we've mentioned it several times, but I think this is, relevant to what we're talking about. If they're using these manipulations to try and stop transparency, one of the things in the bill is that teachers can't discourage children from talking to their parents.
That's
because
correct.
one of the things these teachers are doing is telling the kids not to talk to their parents. It just seems like there's a lot of external pressures on people to sever themselves from community, family, religion, etc. Ultimately, you add in the transhumanist factor or the neural link and the metaverse, and what you end up with is, it feels like in order for there to be like a metaverse, you would need these things beforehand.
Yeah. In order to get your hands on kids, you need to break up the family. And the strongest connection, pardon me for saying, is mothers and children. And surrogacy is a massive thing that totally separates the idea that mothers carry children and have children and raise and nurture infants. And so all of it is, there's not much that we're doing that actually reinforces the family. And I know the family in America has got the weird connotations of family, traditional, like homophobic. If you mention family values, all of a sudden you're saying something anti-gay. But it's just really interesting. If I was a predator, if I was a nasty predatory pedophile, I would absolutely love the segregation of children from families and mothers from children, and disempowering mothers. And there's no greater way to disempower mothers than actually rob women of all of their rights and power and vocabulary.
Of all of their rights as a mother. Yeah, to even call yourself a mother.
Yeah.
It's shockingly horrifying to see how this is going on. And then you have school districts like in Florida, there's a couple of cases. I was talking to a woman, January Littlejohn, the other day, who is suing her school district because they started her daughter on the road to gender transition and didn't tell the family. Wow. So another family in Florida where they didn't know that their child was exploring gender identity at school until the child tried to kill herself in the bathroom at the school. Well, and then it turned out that they were having like secret gender identity meetings. And the idea
was Florida, right?
That was Florida.
Which precipitated the parental rights bill.
Right, where they clearly need it.
Yep.
So you have a situation where educators and administrators think that it's their job to help children keep secrets from their parents because all parents are going to be abusers. And they even said in that one case in Florida, well, the family is Catholic, so they're automatically going to be abusive and non-understanding. And the father was like, what our religion teaches us to love our children. Like, what the hell?
I kind of just feel like, whether it's intentional or not, over the past several decades, there's been a major push for the precursor of transhumanism.
I think it's for sure intentional. I find that if we're divided into subsects of classes in this species that we have the elite and the plebeians, which is everyone else. And it's really a class of elite, whatever you want to call them, where they are family tight. They are knit units where they like the children run the business that the dad ran, and they're always in contact, and they're flying on their jets to see each other, and their kids know their parents. And then you got everybody else, man, and they're just letting the wild animals graze right now.
I just kind of realized something. I used to make the joke that the future is going to be everybody with shaved heads wearing jumpsuits or giant, cones over their bodies so that no one can tell because of
like Kurt Vonnegut.
Harrison Bergeron, is that what it's called?
Yeah.
Bergeron.
Harrison Bergeron, yeah.
Bergeron. And then I just realized why that's wrong. Because people are going to plug themselves into the neural linked metaverse where you are just a gray blob. And everyone will then just be the same generic avatar.
I don't think they will be the same avatar. I think you get to pick your avatar. Oh, to start, yeah.
To start, everyone's going to be the same.
For sure.
So it'll be the blank slate ideology.
And then you have to grind for your outfits and your stuff.
Here's the interesting thing about it, though. If you take every single human being and erase their minds, or if you do this, if you take 1 million babies and you put them in the metaverse where they all start off as genderless, jumpsuit wearing little humans, and they grow and develop, and then, around the time that they're 10 or whatever, it's like, now choose your gender, and they can just pick. I'll tell you this, you would find a massive correlation between biological sex and internal digital world gender. So if you take a kid and raise them in, the metaverse, I would be willing to bet there's like a 98% chance that kid would be like, I'm a boy or I'm a girl.
They would decide it? Or they would be it.
What I'm saying is, if you take a child, a baby, and put them in the metaverse,
right,
where they never experience the real world and they have no gender, then at 12 years old, they go to school, you ask them, which gender would you choose? They would likely choose their biological sex.
the one they actually are.
Right.
Yeah.
So even in the metaverse,
They'd also really need to stretch out. They'd be like, this feels uncomfortable.
well, their brain is Neuralinked. They wouldn't
Right.
they wouldn't know that they're trapped in a pod.
So they
would
wouldn't
be-
even know that they have a body.
No. And so, I mean, they probably would. I think if we enter this transhumanist reality where everyone is a blank slate and everyone's born this way, you're gonna have a million babies. They're gonna grow up, and then you're gonna see a 98% correlation with biological sex of the physical world body and the chosen gender in the metaverse.
Is it? Oh, go ahead.
So, well, I was just going to say, look, because I'm far too hopeful to think this is the future for human beings. But also, even if you're right, there's only going to be a certain number of people that can afford to join the you don't think, the metaverse?
Everybody's got a cell phone. It's only a matter of time. It'll start with the rich people, but then give it 10 years, and it's going to be a $20 metaverse pass.
And what about the people that are religious and are family connected in countries like India?
See, I'm working on a TV show. Yeah, so I can't say too much. But it basically explores the idea that there are a lot of people who will not take the Neuralink and a lot of people who want it. And what Ian mentioned is there's kind of divergence happening within human evolution right now where you're going to have, what you said, Homo cyberneticist or whatever?
Yeah, something like that.
Homo cybernetic versus Homo sapien. And you're going to have a lot of people who are like, this is the real world. We love our family. We believe in God. It's interesting because we're now facing the real prospect of a divergence between the human species by choice, almost by
Right.
ideology. So,
Did you read
Yeah.
E.M. Forrester's The Machine Stops?
Mm-mm.
So basically, that's what happens in that. It's like a little novella, I think he wrote it in like 1914 or something ridiculous like that. And basically, there's people in pods, and all of their information comes to them through this view screen, and there's a machine that they can ask to bring them food and whatever it is that they need. But this one guy reaches out to his mom, and the way that he has a mother is that the machine set her up with this guy, and they had a child, and then the child was taken to like a nursery pod where it was raised. But anyway, he reaches out to his mom, and he's like, I would really like to breathe some clean air. They live underground in this thing.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
I saw a movie that was basically this. Maybe
Yeah.
it was,
But
this
it's interesting because in the book, there is this one guy who's like, no, I'm not doing this.
What is that?
He was raised in that environment, and he comes to it on his own that he doesn't want to live like this. And he eventually makes it to the surface of the earth where he dies from the poison air. But he
happy
tries.
ending.
He tries. I mean, it is kind of a happy ending because he's like, I made it.
He liberates
I see
himself.
the sun. I see, you know.
Well,
And then he dies.
for everybody listening, maybe you guys, the audience is always really good at helping me out with this. There's a show. It might be Electric Dream. Was it Electric Dreams? Is that what the show was called? But I watch all these different sci-fi anthology shows. It's a kid who lives in this, pod where he plays video games all day, and he interacts with his mom over text chat, and they just play platform video games, and food is automatic. And then one day his pod breaks, and he has no choice but to go outside where he thinks the air is toxic, but it's not. And then he goes to his mom and he knocks on the door, and she's freaking out, like, what is going on? Why is there a person here? It sounds very similar to what you were describing, but it's,
Yeah, I mean, it sounds similar. I think it's a similar theme in literature.
I wonder if you're going to have like humans on Mars that are Neuralinked, humans on Mars that aren't, humans on Earth that are Neuralinked, humans on Earth that aren't, and you'll have like 4 different species, and then they'll all go to war, and one of them will become the predominant species.
Would you do it? Would you Neuralink, Ian?
Yeah.
You would do it?
Yeah.
some people are saying it was Electric Dreams.
I've been clearing my mind. I'm practicing meditation where you have no thought for like, I could have like no thought for an hour. And the metaverse is going to be really important because they're going to be trying to read your thoughts. Mm-hmm. So you got to like the end of Ghostbusters where like, don't think of anything. And he thinks of the Marshmallow Man.
Right. He sure does.
Don't think of anything. You need a clear thought or they're going to be controlling them.
Uh-huh.
So do you think then in this happy future that we're all looking at, that those in maybe authoritarian religious countries, will they be less likely to hook up?
I don't know about that. It's a great way to control the population. Yeah. So they might just say, we'll create our own isolated introverse where everyone can, it depends on whether you think the people who run, do you think the people who lead Iran are actually religious, or they just want power and control?
Well, I think they're both.
Because then if it's just about power and control, they'll say whatever they have to and absolutely would adopt a metaverse-like system. if they're actually religious, they probably would resist. It depends on how religious or how they interpret their religion.
Oh yeah, there will be religions in the metaverse and stuff where it's like it becomes a religion.
You know the funniest thing
they'll worship like a golden calf.
It'd just be hilarious if we're actually in it right now. And
what I think will happen is some people will start they'll start metaversing government, military, and then they'll see it's so powerful to be able to control the machines with your thoughts that even the most religious zealous will start doing it because it's either that or die. Like, don't fall behind on the technology. It's a weapon. It can be used as a weapon for sure.
If we were in it right now, I don't think my children would be so rude.
but if you know, I mean, you might not know. You just maybe we're the remnants of a post-apocalyptic civilization that destroyed the planet and purposefully chose to put ourselves in a matrix so that we can live.
Oh, that's such a road to hell.
Crazy.
That whole thought process is, that's a spiral into. I
don't think we are. I just only because I have no evidence. I don't think we're not. I just don't think we are.
No, I agree with that. But I do think it really does feel like that's the direction we're going in. You've got people who jump from one cause to another. You see what Elon Musk tweeted?
Yeah.
I support current thing. And it's the NPC meme holding the Ukrainian flag with all the other flags around it. And I'm like, that's a great point. I'm wondering what it is that has created this large group of millions of people who are mindless drones. Makes me wonder, what if, well, I'll put it this way. I think those people are absolutely going to Neuralink and go into the metaverse and just live and march in lockstep. I also wonder if it's true that we are living in some kind of simulation, maybe we're the people who are actually in the pods and they actually are NPCs,
Oh, the whole NPC thing. I watched that show Free Guy the other day, that movie with my son. He was like, we should watch this. Because I was telling him that I thought the whole NPC concept was really wild, and I was like, what if there's NPCs in real life? And he was like, yeah, I've been thinking about that. We should watch this movie. And I'm like, you're 11. You came up with this already.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I think people can like go into NPC mode and then snap back out of it, and all of a sudden they have sentience again. They're like, oh my gosh, what have I done? Sometimes I'll even wake up and be like, wow, what was I doing yesterday? I was in like a weird fog yesterday and today.
I don't know.
I had this weird thing during COVID where like it took me a little while to realize that this was going on, but we were like locked down and you couldn't go anywhere and everything was closed, and I started to like just not want to move. I just didn't want to move at all, and then I realized like, oh, you have this weird idea that if you just stop moving, this whole thing will be over sooner.
Yeah.
Oh, we have a correction. Kyle Billing says the movie I was referring to was 2149: The Aftermath, and I remember it now.
I'm going to write that down.
Yeah, it sounds basically like what you talked about.
Yeah.
The air was poisonous, and he was in a pod or whatever.
2149: The Aftermath.
Yeah, you know what movie is also cool? Totally irrelevant. Is Time Trap.
I don't know that.
That movie's great.
Cool name.
Yeah.
You think people are in such a state of panic right now that they're just kind of like head down, wait for this all to end, wait for the whole war in Iraq to end, wait for the COVID to end, wait
Russia,
for all the pain,
the world
all the things I'm afraid of. Yeah, wait for the alien invasion that hasn't been false flagged on us yet to end.
Well, we really want things to end. Like as a culture, it seems like
I don't,
are really.
But some people.
No,
think so.
I don't want things to end either. But like, I feel like our culture is really gearing up for just being like, and that's it. We burned ourselves out. That's it.
Enough
it's
gravity.
over.
Gravity hurts.
Well,
Let's end it.
Was it? I think Seamus came up with the joke. We were talking about what the future would be like, and he was like, "Wouldn't it be funny if it's like 200 years in the future and everything's just the same?" And some guy like gets in a time machine and goes to the future, and he comes out and everything looks normal like it was when he left.
No.
And he's like, he asked someone what year it was, and they're like, "Oh, it's 22, and he's like, "But everything's the same." And they're like, "That was it. Like that was all our ideas. We ran out. That was it." Nothing else after that. We kind of just there's a bunch more McDonald's, but other than that, nothing real beyond the kiosk.
Right. It's like a Mike Judge movie.
Yeah. Right.
For sure. They've talked about the end of the world for the millennia, since the beginning of humanity. Someone's out there like, it's all coming to an end. This is it.
We're constantly obsessed with the end. There's this play, I think it's called American Dream. Maybe it's not. But it's by this playwright, Len Jenkin, who's this New York playwright. And at the end of this sort of wild romp, all of these characters just start saying, I don't care about philosophy. Just tell me how it ends. I don't care about philosophy.
I gotta be honest. I'm at the point where I'm like, I feel like we've reached this a certain number of seasons of humanity to where they're doing reruns.
Yep.
You know,
Kind of sucks.
yeah, it's just a repeat, and then it's just like, okay, it's like watching. I went and saw the Batman this past weekend.
They call it The Batman. That's like what the movie is called, The Batman.
But the Batman is like a common thing.
Yeah.
It's been around.
Okay.
Like that phrase has been around for a long time.
The Batman.
Yeah, there's like cartoons. There's a cartoon called The Batman. There's comics of The Batman. But
if I could have any superpowers, it would be Batman's because he's just rich.
Yeah.
well, actually, his superpower is defined as peak human because he's trained on the mountaintops and he's master of like ninjutsu, and he's also rich.
I would just really go with once we get the rich part, I'd be okay.
Yeah, I digress.
Very intelligent.
Sorry.
That was a movie where I was, it starts off like pretty good and then slowly gets worse, but never ends. It just doesn't stop. It's like we've caught the bad guy, and I'm like, well, it's finally over. And there's an act 4, and I'm like, okay. And then they introduce a whole bunch of random plot elements, and I'm like, okay, at this point, and I feel like that movie was a great way to understand life in the past decade.
Oh, you think
like,
it's over, and then it just keeps going.
Worse. But more and more absurd.
Yeah.
Like, we went from we've got a pandemic. Then we got a pandemic started. Get this. Let's recount the past couple of years. A pandemic starts. All right. Everyone's like, we're shutting down. The president, who's Donald Trump, by the way, gets on TV and says we're going to be banning travel with Europe, and I'm sitting there with my friends, and we're like, whoa, it's getting serious. And then 2 months later, the biggest riots we've seen in 5 decades, billions of dollars in damage, 30 plus dead, and I'm like, isn't a pandemic happening? And then we're like, whoa, back to the pandemic. And then I'm like, okay, that didn't end. Then intermittent in all of that is like escalation of civil war, people being killed in the streets. And it's like, man, the more we see this stuff, the more it feels like the country's going to collapse. And then all of a sudden, World War III starts.
Right.
It's just like, okay, it really feels like someone,
And you have the new president. Just go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, I know. The president's Joe Biden now.
Houseplant.
It's like we thought it was funny that Donald Trump was the president because he's like a TV reality star, and now we have Joe Biden, who is essentially a Mr. Magoo.
Yeah, like, he is Mr. Magoo. He sits up there. He hardly says. He like looks at you with his little slinty eyes, and then he whispers. He's
And he
like,
yells.
"It's not going to be World War III. We're not sending troops into Ukraine."
Have you guys seen the South Park episode where it turns out Earth is a reality show, and the aliens are just like, we're done with the show, so they're gonna blow the Earth up? It's like 3,000 seasons, and we're just done.
That's a fun thing in sci-fi where the Earth is actually just totally irrelevant, and they're gonna pave it over for a highway, like in Hitchhikers and stuff. Yeah.
What do you think is going to be the next thing then when normal people get peaked into understanding that they're being massively lied to? So I don't
know if that'll happen.
Neural
I
net.
think it is happening.
See, so because of what I do and I defend women's rights, then I'm used to the media peddling what I call lies about really important.
What you call? What are
lies?
Factually lies.
And I'm kind of used to that. I'm used to our politicians going along with telling absolute silly lies about biological sex and what words mean. But then we had the pandemic, in which that sort of really propelled more lies and narratives, and really obvious, overt, kind of dishonest narratives. And now we've got the war in Ukraine, which, because of all these lies, I think people are finding it really difficult to believe anything that's being told by the mainstream media. And so where the hell next?
Well, on Thursday, I don't know if you saw this, the White House invited 30 TikTok stars to give them the propagandist lines about the war in Ukraine.
Is that like when
they
Biden
peddled
got
the
Cardi
whole
B?
Oh my goodness. Yeah. So they, what could be next? What could be next? I think actually we have a lot of stuff going on with voting rights. I wonder if that could be part of it. Like there's like, I'm not even going to get into all that.
Well,
that's a mess.
I don't think that's big enough. Like, COVID was huge and engulfed everyone. Black Lives Matter was huge and engulfed everyone. Now World War III or whatever you want to call it.
That'll engulf everyone.
Yeah.
So that will be the
aliens?
third thing, right?
That was my first thought was aliens, but I think it's too obvious now.
I think
You think it's too obvious? Like, that's just not going to be the plot point because
we know
it
about
would just
talking
be
plasma. It's just
too
obvious.
Yeah, but not. It feels like we live in a reality where someone is trying to keep people entertained. And it's just like, okay, regular human civilization wasn't working. Let's ramp things up.
The elite are trying to keep the plebs entertained.
Or it's, in 2016, the Large Hadron Collider fired up for the first time. Is that what happened right before Trump got elected?
That was wild.
Now we're just in this crazy multiverse of madness. Doctor Strange is,
Maybe that's sort of an interesting. Biden. Do you reckon he's cloned?
Oh my goodness!
Like Dolly the sheep in the UK, because that didn't go well.
Well, I think
there's like 10 different Bidens. There's all just different clones of them.
Probably this
different teeth.
War thing is going to keep ramping up, right?
What
probably the war is going to keep ramping up.
The Ukraine thing?
Yeah.
I think we are headed towards hot war between NATO and Russia for sure.
Yeah, I think that's what we're looking at.
Well, so let me give you guys a direct reference. I don't know if I'm pretty sure I pulled it up. But
maybe we can send the TikToks.
Here we go.
Yeah. Thanks for checking out this segment from the Timcast IRL podcast. But if you want to check out the full show live, tune in Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. And if you want more special access content, head over to timcast.com and become a member. Your membership helps sustain this company, keep our journalists employed, makes this show happen, and you will get access to exclusive members-only segments of the Timcast IRL podcast, and there's a massive library to check out. So again, go to timcast.com or tune in Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., and we'll see you all there.